The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 222. Brandon is out, and Michigan finds some offense in a homecoming win over Indiana. That and more on this week's show.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long con from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked to send over there. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Carter ends up. Carter's got it. Oh my God! Carter scores! Look at those Wolverines. 95 Wolverines going to the end zone. Carter got the pass. In the air, it's done. Buford is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Brandon is out and Hackett is in as interim AD. It's old news by now, but at least some of this year's turmoil has been quieted for the time being. What happens next, no one really knows. What we do know is the search for a new AD is underway, and Coach Hoke's job status is still up in the air. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that in the coming weeks, though. Today we'll concentrate on what was a wonderful diversion from all of this chaos, a homecoming victory over Indiana. We'll also look ahead to this Saturday's trip to Evanston and a 3:30 p.m. game with Northwestern. On my Michigan Gameday segment, editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine will join me, and he has some interesting thoughts on just how long Hackett could be the interim athletic director. Before we get to John, on our visitor segment, my guest will be Dave Eanet. Dave is the sports director at WGN Radio Chicago and the play-by-play voice of Northwestern football and basketball. So I hope you'll stay with us today for some very interesting conversation. Let's start, as we always do, though, with my view from Section 17. It wasn't pretty against Indiana, and yes, with freshman quarterback Xander Diamant, they are a one-dimensional team, but it was still a victory. The defense knew all they had to do was stop the running game, led by the nation's leading rusher, Tevin Coleman, and they did. On offense, the priority was avoiding turnovers and getting the running game going. Devin threw another pick, and the running game did struggle in the first half. But when sophomore Drake Johnson entered the game, the ground game improved dramatically. The offensive line did a better job, and Drake hit the holes, showing good vision, good speed when he made it to the second level, and also some nice open field moves. I think we all agree, let's get him in the game early this Saturday and see if he can duplicate in some small way this past weekend's performance. It might be too early to say this, but I think we might have something in young Drake Johnson. Something we've been missing in the running game for several years now. All in all, it was a satisfying win. Let's hope we take the momentum on the road this weekend and make good use of it. This past Saturday, Northwestern was pounded by Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. The Wildcats have been up and down this year, and right now they are down, having suffered their 3rd consecutive defeat. Rest assured they will be looking to bounce back this week at home against Michigan. To learn more about this week's opponent, we're joined next on our visitor segment by the radio voice of Northwestern football, Dave Eanet. Here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. With us in our visitor segment this week is Dave Eanet, sports director at WGN Radio and the voice of Northwestern football and basketball. Welcome back, Dave.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be with you.
Well, Dave, the headline on Yahoo Sports on Sunday morning said Northwestern turned in its most frightening performance of the season a day after Halloween. It just went south on the Wildcats from the get-go at Kinnick Stadium, didn't it?
Yeah, it was right from the opening kickoff. In fact, I think that the opening kickoff really kind of set the tone for the way the entire game went, as Iowa's return man, Jonathan Parker, fumbled the ball, almost lost it out of bounds around the 2-yard line. Everybody collapsed on him, so he took it to the wide side and ran it out to about midfield, and then got hit out of bounds. So tack on another 15 yards. Iowa runs its first play from scrimmage at the Northwestern 31-yard line. And I just think that starting a game like that, not only did it pave the way for a quick score, but it set the tone for a 24-point first quarter for the Hawkeyes.
Well, it was just ugly. I was watching Coach Fitzgerald's presser after the game, and he said he told the guys after the game, we're going to get off the bus in Evanston and forget all about this one. I mean, that's really all you can do when a game goes as poorly as that one did.
Well, they haven't had many like that in recent years, so I think it'll be really interesting to see how they come back from this, because they've suffered some tough losses, and you need look no further than the losses to Michigan the last 2 years in triple overtime last year and an overtime 2 years ago at Ann Arbor, and so they're used to that, but generally they're in games. This was very unusual that they got blown out, and especially games against Iowa, because that's been a very competitive series in which Northwestern has had the edge over the years.
Well, Dave, it's been a streaky season for the Wildcats. A slow start, then it looked like things were coming together. Now back to 3 losses in a row. Why so up and down in your opinion this year?
I don't know. It's a great question that everybody's asking here. They started out 0-2, and that easily could have been a better start for them. They came out, started against Cal in their opener much the way they started Saturday against Iowa. They gave up 17 points in the first quarter. They got down by 24 in that game. They came back and were down 7 and had the ball in the fourth quarter against Northern Illinois the following week. They played a scoreless first half, took the lead in the second half, but then ultimately gave up the go-ahead score to NIU. And then they reeled off those 3 straight wins, and really it easily could have been 4 and maybe even 5, because I think they outplayed Minnesota in the game up there, but ended up losing on a kickoff return in the fourth quarter. And then they had the lead with 5 minutes to go at home against Nebraska a couple of weeks ago, and then just really struggled offensively. And I think the third quarter, Nebraska was able to reverse its fortunes, and the Wildcats kind of fell victim to it. They couldn't make a first down in the third quarter, and Nebraska took the lead, and that was that. The game on Saturday was really, really uncharacteristic, I think. I mean, this was I think you can say this may not be as good a team as they've been in past years, and you can say that Northwestern's got some problems, but this isn't a team which is 41 points worse than Iowa. This was just one of those games where things just kind of got out of hand quickly and they never recovered.
Well, one of the real bright spots for the Wildcats this year has been the play of freshman running back Justin Jackson. 158 carries, 726 yards. He's been a really nice surprise, hasn't he?
No question about it. And, I think he would have played under any circumstances, but clearly the departure of Venrick Mark opened up some additional playing time for him. And, yeah, he's been great. He's been the most consistent aspect of this offense. And, when you have a quarterback who's been kind of up and down and has been under a lot of pressure, they give up 5 sacks on Saturday. The offensive line's been inconsistent. There's no question Justin Jackson has been the most consistent performer on this offense.
Well, talking about Trevor Siemian for just a moment, Dave, consistency's been his issue this year, 56.2% completion percentage coming into this week. despite having some really nice receivers, I think, in Prater and Vitale, Schuler. I know the line protection hasn't been what Coach Fitzgerald has wanted it to be. The inconsistency this season from him, is it a multitude of reasons? Why is he struggling?
Well, I think it is. I think it's been the pressure. I think it's been the inconsistency on the offensive line. I think it's been some injuries to his receivers. They've been in and out at various times. That was a factor in the loss to Nebraska, where you had Vitale, Schuler, Prater, all of those guys were knocked out of that game with injuries along the way. And so I do think that has an impact. His top receiver coming back, or certainly the most productive receiver the Wildcats have had in recent years, Christian Jones, tore his ACL in the preseason. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes, but he was a first down machine for this team, and to not have him, no question, has hurt. I think it hasn't been Trevor's best year. He's also dealt with some injuries. He's been a little bit limited on his mobility because of an ankle injury, and so I think all those factors have combined to kind of leave this offense where it is.
Well, with us on our visitors segment, as we look forward to Saturday afternoon's game against the Wildcats in Evanston, is Dave Eanet, sports director, WGN, and the voice of Northwestern football. Dave, despite Saturday's loss to Iowa, the Wildcat defense been pretty solid this year. Standout linebacker Chichi Araguzo leads the way. If you could, Dave, give us a rundown on the D and some of the key players we're going to be seeing on Saturday.
Well, Araguzo is certainly key to them. Their will linebacker, he's been terrific. Their leading tackler, got a nose for the football, always seems to be around it. He did a great job, even in that Nebraska game where Northwestern bottled up Amir Abdullah really for 3 quarters, and a lot of that credit goes to Chichi Araguzo. And it's a good linebacking core. Right now they've been missing Colin Ellis, their middle linebacker. Not sure of his status for this week. He's been dealing with a concussion. He's been out, although his replacement, Anthony Walker, a redshirt freshman, was Big Ten Freshman of the Week. The first start he made was the win at Penn State, and he had a 49-yard pick six in that game to help put the game away. Then Drew Smith and Jimmy Hall. So it's a pretty good linebacking group. The secondary, I think, really has been solid for the most part. They got beat a couple times on Saturday, but that's going to happen over the course of the season. But the corners, Matthew Harris, a sophomore, Nick Van Hoos, a junior, who really was probably playing the best football of his career a few weeks ago. And then the safeties, Travion Henry and Ibrahim Campbell's been hurt. He didn't play again on Saturday. He's missed the last 3 games. But his replacement, Godwin Igwebuike, has also been a Big Ten Freshman of the Week. He came up with 3 interceptions in the win over Wisconsin. So they've had some nice young players who've come in when they've had some of their veterans get hurt. The defensive line's been a little bit inconsistent at times, but pretty good. They haven't gotten to the quarterback as much as they would like, but you have some veteran guys up there like Dean Lowry and Chance Carter. Greg Kuhar has played pretty well for them. They had some injuries on Saturday, and I'm not sure of the status of some of those guys. But really, I think for the most part, the defense has performed pretty well. They've been on the field a lot because the inability of the offense to convert on some third downs, and I think that's been a factor in the defensive performance, especially late in some games.
Well, the Wildcats head into this weekend's game against Michigan with a 3-5 record. Both teams have been wildly inconsistent this year. How do you think Northwestern matches up against this Wolverine team?
Well, right now I'm not sure they match up real well against anybody because it all depends on how quickly they can forget about what happened on Saturday and try to regain some of the confidence. Because when you go through a stretch like this, there's no question that it is something of an unsettling kind of a situation. But I think that this has still got the potential to be a pretty good team, and playing at home, they should have some confidence. They also know that they need to go at least 3-1 to get to a bowl game. They got 4 games left. They get Michigan. They go to Notre Dame a week later. And I guess the Wolverines can tell us all about what that's like. And then go to Purdue and play Illinois at home. And that's a rivalry game. And obviously Purdue's improved. So it's a pretty tough final 4 games, tougher than it looked maybe earlier in the season. So I'm sure they're looking at this as a game they absolutely have to have, and I'm sure Michigan's looking at it the same way. I think that the one thing that Northwestern knows is they've had the last 2 years, they've seemingly had the Wolverines beaten late in the game, and they've given up a field goal at the end to send the game to overtime. Now, you can debate whether that field goal should have been kicked last year in Evanston, but 2 years ago they gave up a Hail Mary at the end of the game that cost them, and then last year they ended up losing in triple overtime. So you know that they've got some payback in mind this week. They have to after suffering 2 losses like that.
Well, as you said, though, coming off a loss like they did on Saturday, they being Northwestern against Iowa, the mental aspect of it will be interesting to see. But if they can get by Michigan on Saturday, I mean, that schedule is not easy. A trip to South Bend, a trip to Purdue, and then back against the Fighting Illini. Do you think there's a realistic chance Northwestern can win 3 of the next 4?
Well, I guess I would say it's going to be very tough, except I don't think too many people thought they could go into Penn State and win, and not only go in there, but dominate Penn State. And I know that Penn State's having a tough season themselves, but they have never gone in there and really dominated a game the way they did against the Nittany Lions. So they show they're capable of it. And to beat Wisconsin at home, Wisconsin is back in the top 25 this week, and at the time they were ranked 17th. So I think the fact that they were able to put those performances together, I think tells you they're capable of it. Now, will they do it? Obviously, that's another question. So are injuries, because like I said, they did have some guys come out of the game Saturday at Iowa, and we don't have any word yet on their status.
Well, we'll start to get some answers on Saturday, 3:30 p.m. kickoff in Evanston, Michigan, Northwestern. Our guest on today's Visitor segment has been Dave Eanet, Sports Director, WGN Chicago, and the voice of Northwestern football and basketball. Dave, always a pleasure, and we look forward to the next time.
Sounds good, Mike. Thank you.
Coming up next on our Michigan Game Day segment, the editor of the Wolverine Magazine, John Borton, joins me here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Back with us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week is the editor of the Wolverine Magazine, John Borton. John, good to have you back with us.
Great to be with you, Mike.
Well, let's start off with some good news for a change, John. Even if it was a one-dimensional Indiana team on Saturday, and it was still a good win, wasn't it?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. When you have won 3 games on the year and you're desperate, any win's a good win. And it was homecoming, and it was a chance for the Michigan fans to just kind of take a breather from all the negativity that had been showered upon this program, and really more than that for the players and coaches to do that and just get out and enjoy a football game. One where it wasn't hanging in the balance. Michigan did some good things on both sides of the football and created some turnovers and just settled in and won a game like they were expected to win a game, especially against an Indiana team that was shorthanded without its starting quarterback.
Well, John, this team has been looking for a spark on offense, and on Saturday, for at least a half, we got one from Drake Johnson. That performance, it wants to make you see more of Drake, doesn't it?
Oh, there's no question about it. And I think there's a lot of Michigan fans that were looking at each other and saying, where'd this kid come from? But, Drake Johnson had put himself in position to get some time before he ever tore up his ACL in his knee a year ago. And that was in the opening game. Cost him the entire season. He worked so hard to get back, and he was finally coming around to where he needed to be this fall, but he was still trying to pick up the pass protection schemes that allow you to get on the field. And So he had other people that had gotten in front of him. But that opportunity against Indiana was an eye-opener because he is a good someone who can hit the hole quickly and accelerate, and I think he's going to see some more time.
Well, recently, John, Doug Nussmeier said the problems with the running game couldn't all be pinned on that offensive line, which he thought was improving. But he said the running backs' hesitation, lack of vision had to be considered as a factor, too. Drake Johnson gave some credence to that, I thought, Saturday, because we have not seen a Michigan back, at least consistently, attack the holes without hesitation like he did.
Oh, there's no doubt. And a couple things about that. I think he was head and shoulders above the other running backs who were running against the same Indiana team, so it's hard to say, well, it was Indiana, so it doesn't mean anything. Drake Johnson was certainly the best of the bunch in attacking Indiana. The other part to that is that he was running, he did most of his damage in the third and fourth quarters when Indiana had already been worn down a little bit on defense. So, you take it for what it was. I think he showed some things that are going to give him more opportunities here in the near future.
Well, every week John Brady says his team practices and plays hard, and he's proud of them every week, says that at the pressers. But again, Saturday we saw great effort for the entire game. And really, that's not only a credit to these kids after all they've been through this year, but it also is a credit to Coach Hoke and the staff, isn't it?
Oh, I absolutely. And these kids understand this above all. They love Brady Hoke. They absolutely do, because he's the guy that brought them in here, the vast majority of them, and he is someone who is very genuine in how he cares about them and how he relates to them. They feel worse than anyone that they're in a position now where, because of the struggles that they've had, his job is being very publicly questioned. And the one good thing that you see out of this bunch is that there's been no give in terms of the effort that they're putting in and the work that they're doing.
Well, one thing that we've been waiting for is the improvement on that offensive line. We watch it closely all week. I talk to Greg Skrepenak often, and he's been saying for the last few weeks, Mike, this offensive line is getting better. It's not as quickly as we'd like. And I know on the Wolverine.com podcast, Doug Skeen with Chris Ballas has been saying the same thing. The offensive line play is getting better, especially with the pass protection. I think we're starting to see that, John.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we saw that at Michigan State. Even amid all the ugliness that was up there and the struggle that took place, you just compare it to a year before when Devin Gardner was running for his life and sacked 7 times and hit 27 or 28 times. In that game this year against Michigan State, he was relatively well protected. He still made some bad decisions. He still threw some interceptions, but he was not under siege like he was a year ago. So, yes, this is an offensive line that is coming along slowly. It has a true freshman playing left tackle, and you don't see that much, especially out of Michigan teams. And there are other changes that have been made, and they've found a combination that now that they're going with, and I think incrementally they are getting better. You'd still like to see a more dominant run game and a few other things, but in pass protection, this is a group that has done pretty well of late.
Well, we have some positives to talk about this week, no doubt. Another kid who I think is a positive, and I want to single out for some kudos on offense, is Amara Darboh. Kid's getting better each week, catches just about everything you throw his way, and does not shy away from contact. You can see him progressively getting better.
Absolutely, and he has become someone who can take some of that heat off of Devin Funchess on the other side, because you can't consider it a one-man operation. Amara Darboh, he's had a couple of big plays this year that were disappointments, certainly. That play at Rutgers that was highly disputed about the call, and then a big drop up at Michigan State. But as he's going, remember, this is a kid that sat out all of last year with that foot injury and really is getting his first taste of extensive action as a wide receiver, and he's reacting well to it. He's growing as he goes along. I think he's a nice threat now and will be more and more in the future, he's continuing to get more comfortable out on the field.
With us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week is the editor of the Wolverine Magazine, John Borton. John, the defense held IU to just under 200 yards total offense. And again, we know they were one-dimensional, they being Indiana. But they came into the game featuring the nation's leading rusher in Tevin Coleman. So another impressive performance from the defense.
Yeah, I would say so. And it's certainly something where this defense has components, has talent. And they have played a little better of late, increasingly so, but you still have to look at a game with an Indiana that is only able to throw the football for 28 yards. And when you don't have that passing threat, you can load up to stop a Tevin Coleman, and I think that's exactly what Michigan did. I would hate to face this Indiana team if it had Nate Sudfeld, for instance, and was able to throw the football consistently enough to keep you honest, and then Tevin Coleman is going to be that much more of a threat. So Michigan really caught a break there, but that does not diminish the point that Michigan's defense has come along throughout the season and is playing some pretty decent football, especially against the run.
Well, John, one area we don't seem to be getting any improvement from is the punt and kick return game, and it seems, at least to me, as if Dennis Norfleet is calling for a lot of fair catches back there on punts. Have you heard any talk of maybe trying someone else back there to maybe jumpstart what is a very important aspect of the game?
I don't think they have anybody right now that is Dennis Norfleet's equal in terms of being sure-handed and being confident back there, and I don't think it's a move that they're going to make, quite frankly. Let's not forget that when this year started out, Jabril Peppers was the guy back there, and the true freshman was seen as somebody who would be very explosive and also sure-handed in that role. Well, he got hurt. Norfleet has been the guy that has been in there and doing a steady job, and I don't think at this point, with so much on the line and having to win these games, that they want to risk somebody who hasn't been out there and may have the potential to give you the big return, but also has the potential to be more likely to drop the football. They know they're very unlikely to face that with Norfleet, and I don't see a change coming there.
Well, John, another kid I want to single out this week is Matt Weil. He has just quietly and consistently turned in very good performances this season and become a valuable weapon.
No doubt. He's done his job. He's kicked some clutch long field goals of late. A little bit of a rough start in that Notre Dame game, obviously. But this is a kid that is putting together a very, very solid senior season. And you got to feel good for him because he's put in a good career here. He certainly like to go out with a team that is challenging for a Big Ten title, but there's a lot of guys in that same boat.
Well, this Saturday, John, we head on up to Evanston, and we know our road record under Coach Hoke, where we're going to hear a lot about it this week. But Saturday, we're facing a Northwestern team, and they're headed in the wrong direction right now. They've come off 3 losses, a bad one to Iowa on Saturday. It looks right now like this is a very good opportunity for Michigan to get a road win, John.
Yeah, it does, and yet I think, Rutgers was a very good opportunity for Michigan to get a road win, and I know that Rutgers was playing better coming into the game than we've seen out of Northwestern, but I do know that there's a pride instilled in the Wildcats these days that they don't just roll over. Now, they had a horrific game out in Iowa City, and I was very surprised that it was that lopsided. But you can look at that 2 ways. Okay, are they totally going downhill at this point, or is it a situation where they come home, they're desperate, they see a Michigan team that is not like the typical Michigan team and say, hey, you only have so many chances to catch Michigan when it's down and see a chance to get a win. And they felt like they should have beat Michigan certainly last year. So I don't. You can't take anything for granted if you're this Michigan team, because it is had those struggles on the road. The one thing I will say about playing at Evanston, it's not a road venue like you think of a typical road venue. It's just not. It's not Columbus. It's not East Lansing. It's not Camp Randall up in Wisconsin. It's usually half filled with Michigan people, and it's not intimidating. But it is a road game, and you have to deal with that.
With all the drama these guys have been through, do you think it does take a toll on these kids at this point of the season?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, they just would rather be playing football and looking forward to coming down the home stretch of a Big Ten race in which they are in it and being judged upon what they're doing. But I'm at these press conferences every week, and there were people after the game on Saturday trying to talk to them about David Brandon and Jim Hackett and the future and what about your head coach and all these things that they certainly don't want to be dealing with at this point. I think they've done a decent job in shutting it out, but it is certainly something extra that a lot of teams aren't dealing with at this stage of the season.
Well, last question for you then, John, this week. We've, of course, since Friday been inundated with news and stories on Dave Brandon. Of course, we know what happened on Friday. Now the search is underway for the next AD. Do you think the plan is to have someone in place before the end of the season?
I don't. And I think it's going to be anywhere from a year to 2 years before they do it. What we're hearing is Jim Hackett may be a longer-term interim than most thought originally. That quite well could mean that if there's a call to be made with regard to football, that he's the guy making it.
Well, it's going to be, along with the last 4 games of the season, it's going to be an interesting period with all of that. And as you and I talked about before we started recording, there's going to be a lot in the print media, the electronic media. We are going to be inundated with stories, and be careful. There's going to be a lot of stuff out there that isn't fact.
No doubt about it. Everybody has a source and everybody has a twist, and you're going to hear them over the next few weeks, but be able to sort out the real from the unreal, and that's the important thing.
Our guest here on our Michigan Game Day segment this week has been the editor of the Wolverine Magazine, John Borton. John, always a pleasure, and we look forward to the next time.
Thank you much, Mike. Always enjoy being with you.
Coming up next, we wrap it up for another week on Wolverine Quick Hits, here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits this week, let's start with an injury update. Coach Hoke says Devin is still bothered by an ankle injury that limits his mobility. He'll still be ready to go on Saturday. Davion Smith turned his ankle in Saturday's game, but should be good to go. Brady said the team was close to a decision on Jabril Peppers. Very soon they'll have to decide if he is coming back or seeking a medical redshirt. Other than the usual bumps and bruises, the team is in good shape for this weekend's trip to Evanston. Here are some game day facts about this week's opponent. Michigan holds the advantage in the series with a record of 55 wins, 15 losses, and 2 ties. The first meeting between the two teams was on October 29, 1892 in Chicago. Northwestern earned a 10-8 victory in that contest. Pat Fitzgerald is now in his 9th year as head coach at his alma mater. His record is 55-46. They run a spread offense and a multiple 4-3 defense. In 2013, the Wildcats were 5-7 overall, 1-7 in the Big Ten. They returned 15 starters, 8 on offense, and 7 on D. Their last bowl appearance was in the 2012 Gator Bowl against Mississippi State, a 34-20 win for the Wildcats. The program has won 8 Big Ten titles, the last coming in 2000. In other Wolverines news this week, Andrew Kopp scored his first goal of the season for Michigan, but the Wolverines went 0 for 7 on the power play, including 2 5-on-3 opportunities, while allowing 4 power play goals in a game for the first time since December 30th, 2010. There were 7 power play goal chances for both teams and 62 combined penalty minutes. The Wolverines will be off this weekend before returning home to Yost Ice Arena to face American International next Friday, November 14th at 7:35 p.m. The Wolverines off to a 2-5 start this year. Michigan Tech, on the other hand, ranked number 17 in the country, off to a great start, a perfect 6-0. The University of Michigan volleyball team, 10-12 overall, 5-7 in the Big Ten, continues its 4-match homestand this weekend with a pair of matches. The Maize and Blue host number 4 Wisconsin on Friday night at 7 p.m. inside Cliff Keen Arena. The Wolverines then face Minnesota on Saturday at 7 p.m. That match will be video streamed on BTN+. Michigan is coming off a 5-set loss to number 10 Illinois on November 1st. Again, the Wolverines 10-12 overall this season, 5-7 in the Big Ten. Thanks again to my guests this week, editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine, and Dave Eanet, the radio play-by-play voice of Northwestern football and basketball. Next Saturday, we get the weekend off, enjoying our second and final bye week of the season. On next week's show, we'll take time to talk about the season to date, what's left, and of course what's happening in the AD search, and plenty more. I hope to have Shemy Schembechler and Greg Skrepenak with me for their always interesting opinions on Michigan football. So we hope you'll join us again next week for that. It's been a difficult season in so many ways. I know Michigan fans are pretty worn out and frustrated at this point too. If you'd like to vent about the situation, my listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls. The number is 313-263-4842. Just tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and vent away. The number again is 313-263-4842. You can also email me at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. Saturday's game in Evanston kicks off at 3:30 p.m. and will be broadcast on ESPN. Here's hoping we can make it 2 in a row and that we see some more of young Drake Johnson on Saturday. I think we all agree on that. That will do it for this week's show. I'll see you back here next week for a recap of the game and some interesting conversation with my scheduled guests, Shemy Schembechler and Michigan great Greg Skrepenak. Until then, have a great Wolverine week, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!